With being the most powerful country in the world comes big responsibility. Often when someone is on top, some of those below will have some reason to hold some form of resentment against them. This is no exception in the modern political landscape. If you've even glanced at the news in recent years, chances are you've caught a glimpse of a segment focusing on the ever-tense relations between the United States and North Korea. From looking at anything from credible historical documents to just watching the news, it is clear that the relations between the two countries are tense at best and at worst on the brink of war. The complex relationship between these two countries has been fostered over decades of war and imperialism. It is important to determine exactly how we ended up here in order to determine what the best route is for the world going forward to progress and peace. Important aspects to look at include the North's complex political history, U.S. tactics in the region, and how the U.S. has handled the North under the current government under President Donald Trump. The North's political history is one of the most important things that one needs to understand when it comes to understanding the modern political landscape in which the country resides. In North Korea, the Juche prophecy is ideology is the fuel that has gotten the country's current government to this point. Juche has been around since the dawn of North Korea as an independent nation. After World War II, the two Koreas were freed of Japanese occupation, with the South falling under democratic U.S. control and the North falling under the control of communist Russia. Leader Kim Il-sung would be the first to coin Juche, meaning self-reliance in Korean, as not just a political ideology, but almost as a religion that dictated how the North Koreans should live spiritually, politically, and in many aspects of daily life. Juche and Kim Il-sung's vision was a testament to North Korea being completely independent. According to Wordmark Encyclopedia of Religious Practices, Kim first used the term in a 1955 speech to position North Korea as a communist country free of the control of communist superpowers such as Russia and China. Though Juche has never been described formally as a religion, it functions to many Koreans just like him. As stated in Wordmark Encyclopedia, Juche followers believe in the tenets of Juche with the same religious fervor that has been displayed by followers of other religions, and they have the same expectation that their faith will be rewarded with immortality. Juche requires those that honor it fall behind a great leader. Kim Il-sung, the leader of North Korea when it was created, is viewed almost as a deity and is known as the eternal president by his followers. The implementation of Juche in politics and in Korean society is visibly apparent across all aspects of North Korean life. The self-reliance policies of the Juche ideology have prevented North Korea from receiving aid from foreign nations. In the long run, this approach has caused North Korea's people to be cut off from their world, poor and hungry. For everyday North Koreans, the law of the land revolves around the constant following and worship of Juche, similar to that of a religious state. The Juche ideology also demands respect to the Kim dynasty, with gargantuan monuments and pictures of the leaders at every turn. Juche puts in place the methods of casting out other religions as well, so as not to threaten the power of the Kim regime, including creating its own rituals similar to that of Buddhists, so that Buddhists do not need to pray, according to History Behind the Headlines, the history of conflict worldwide. Juche and the Kim regime have caused the rest of the world to view North Korea as a kind of hermit. This kind of isolationism has brought North Korea into direct conflict with the United States. Only 2 years after the creation of the two North Korean nations in World War II, ideological and military disputes caused the North to invade the South. According to Gale Encyclopedia, what started out as a civil war quickly exploded into a superpower conflict when U.S.-led UN forces came to the aid of South Korea. The fighting killed millions and the front lines were pushed back and forth between the two nations, and a ceasefire was declared in 1953 that would reestablish the pre-existing border between North and South Korea. The North would remain hostile towards the U.S. and the South after the ceasefire, creating propaganda campaigns for its citizens to convince them that the war was soon to reoccur one day. The U.S. would continue to station troops in South Korea and back the Southern Democratic government in order to prevent another war. And in the years after the war, the South would come to be a prosperous nation and a global power player among nations of different size. Meanwhile, the North would fall into poverty due to the fall of the Soviet Union and the lack of interaction with the outside world. According to Wordmark Encyclopedia, in the intervening years after the war, antipathy developed between the rival regimes as each searched for advantage and supremacy over the other. And the rise of South Korea caused envy and further distancing from itself by the Korean government in the North. Years after the Korean War left the region destabilized and hostile. But in the 21st century, the United States entered a new era under the Trump administration, who took a different approach to North Korea and even furthering the complex relationship between the two nations. The North Korean nuclear program has in recent times been North Korea's last hope of fending off those it considers enemies. The nuclear program has remained shrouded in secrecy. Nobody knows exactly when or how many what or how many nukes the country has. And according to the Encyclopedia of Espionage, since 1993, the IEIA has maintained that North Korea was in noncompliance with the obligations of nuclear noncompliance. And this history of noncompliance has created complex relations between the two nuclear superpowers and the small nation. The U.S. has in the past not engaged with the North because of its policies of nuclear noncompliance. However, in 2018, the new leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, and the new president of the United States, Donald Trump, met in Singapore in hopes of changing the status quo between the two countries. Trump and Kim deliberated one-on-one for hours before signing a new treaty to hopefully usher in a new era of peace between the two countries. The new treaty outlined a variety of new terms, including ceasing U.S. military drills around North Korea, North Korea halting its nuclear program, and creating new diplomatic ties between the two countries. North Korea has since been behind schedule on dismantling its nuclear arsenal, and it is unclear whether, due to the rhetoric of both sides after the meeting, whether the agreement will be effective in the future. Overall, this conflict is still one of the most important issues to concern our world in modern times. The complex history of North Korea and its past interactions with the U.S. have created an unpredictable environment for the world today. It is important to examine the relationship between North Korea and the U.S. to explore exactly how we ended up here, and to determine what the best route is for the two nations going forward. And though the situation is still tense, the future holds all sorts of possibilities for what may bring peace to the hectic world that these two countries exist within.